Welcome back, people. Welcome back to part 2 of Mr. Doctor Who Fan 13's Doctor Who DVD collection. In part 1, we covered the William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, and the Jon Pertwee era. In part 2, we are going to start covering, would you like a jelly baby, the Tom Baker era. And we're going to start out with his very first story, Robots, starring Tom Baker. Well, this is actually a really good story. First story to Tom Baker era. It's sort of like a child-friendly version of King Kong. So, yeah. It's 1 disc long. Again. Not much. Pretty nice, though. Tom Baker's first ever story. Yeah, get it. Definitely get it if you're looking into getting a good Doctor Who story. Definitely. And if you want to start looking into the most popular Doctor ever, if you haven't yet, definitely start with that. Now, next up we have the Sontaran Experiment, starring Tom Baker. Now, this story is actually a really nice little 2-part filler. Definitely better than a Time Warrior, in my opinion. Yes, I said it. So, yeah, it's a 1-discer again, but it's only 2 parts. The second Sontaran story of the classic series, actually a pretty good one. So, yeah. Again, not the best Sontaran story, but yeah, definitely better than the Time Warrior by far, by miles. Now, before you ask where's the Ark in space, I was originally going to get it, but then I heard there was a special edition coming out, so I'm being patient and waiting for that to come out. So with February's pocket money, I will be getting the special edition of the Ark in space. So, yes. Next up here, though, we have what is said to be the greatest Doctor Who story of all time, although I disagree. It's still great, though. Still very good. Genesis of the Daleks, starring Tom Baker. Well, I mean, this story is absolutely brilliant. The introduction of Davros and the story to how the Daleks were created, it's just amazing. Again, I do find it a tad overrated because everyone said it's the best, but I cannot disagree with that. It is good, but I don't think it's the best. So, yeah. And it's a 2-discer, as you can see there. Same layout as The Invasion. So, yeah. That's a quite good story, actually. I actually quite enjoy that one. So, yeah, if you're looking into starting out in the classic series, this will be a great start. It was one of the earlier ones that I got. And we'll be getting the first classic story I got. Well, we'll be getting into that when we get later in the Tom Baker era. Next up, we have the last story of Season 12, Revenge of the Cybermen, starring Tom Baker. This is another great story, of course. Hang on, let me just move the camera back a bit there. There we go. Yeah, this is another great story. Very underrated, this one, actually. This is probably one of the most underrated Doctor Who stories of all time. Now, I think the reason being for this not being, for this being overshadowed is because for this not getting as much praise as it should have is because it was overshadowed by its predecessor, Genesis of the Daleks. Because of that, the popularity that story got, this one didn't get as much. So, yeah. Open it up, again, 1 disc long, and it's upside down. So, yeah, Revenge of the Cybermen. This was actually, fun fact, this was actually the first ever Doctor Who story to be released on VHS, so that's how good a lot of people found, well, that's how good the BBC found it. So, yeah. And next up, we are actually going to skip a bit ahead of the Tom Baker era and completely disregard Season 13 and move on to the second to last story of season 15. Yes, I know I'm seeing quite a bit. Don't worry, I'm going to get some earlier stories in the Tom Baker era. Don't you panic, I will, I promise, at some point. The Robots of Death, starring Tom Baker, the last story of the Revisitations 3 box set, and so of course it's a special edition. However, though, it's only 1 disc long. It's like Spearhead from Space. Like, it's a special edition, but they only put 1 disc. I don't know why. But, yeah. So, Doctor Who, The Robots of Death. This is actually one of Tom Baker's finest, I think. It's just, you know, a nice little classic whodunit story. I think it's really good. Really, really good. So, yeah. Pick it up. It's actually... Did my voice just crack? Yeah, pick it up. It's a really good story. In fact, I'd recommend picking up the Visitations 3, because I recommend 2 of the 3 stories in that one. I recommend the Tomb of the Cybermen and the Robots of Death, but I don't recommend the 3 Doctors, really. So, yeah. Anyway, next up here, we have the last story of season 15, the follow-up to the Robots of Death, The Talons of Weng-Chiang, starring Tom Baker, the first story of Revisitations 1. So, yeah. So, The Talons of Weng-Chiang. This is a really good story. It's a classic, everyone knows it is. It's just absolutely brilliant. Again, now, this story, like the War Games, is actually 3 discs, because it's packed with special features. All 6 episodes are on disc 1. But disc 2 and 3 are packed and packed and packed and loaded. Actually, I might as well say loaded with special features. So, yeah, I really like that they did that. They did a 3 discs for the Talons of Weng-Chiang. So, yeah, really good story. Pick this one up. This is Tom Baker at his finest. So, yeah, 2 good stories in a row there. Next up, we completely skip to season 15. So I know I said Talons of Weng-Chiang was the last story of season 15. I was mistaken. Sorry, I lied to you all. I got it mixed up with season 14. Is this the last story of season 14? So, yeah, forgive me for that. Anyway, next up we have another Sontaran story. The final story of season 15, I swear this time this is true. The Invasion of Time, starring Tom Baker. This is underrated. Now, this story actually is a really, really good story. I find it quite underrated. It's like I said before, it's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant story. Again, it's another Gallifrey story. Speaking of Gallifrey stories, one story I actually really want to get is The Deadly Assassin, but the price it's at now on Amazon, I'm not getting it. So, yeah. I've been wanting that one for a while. Anyway, as you can see, it's a 2-disc set. And it's a nice little, really nice story. I actually really like this one. Pick this one up. This is, again, Tom Baker at his finest. Got a lot of good Tom Baker stories here. And there's a lot of the Jelly Baby scenes in that one, actually. I actually think that's the Doctor Who story with the most Jelly Baby scenes. So, yeah. Anyway, next up we are going to move on to the first story. The very first story of the Key to Time. That is the Ribos Operation, starring Tom Baker. Mary Tam's debut story as Romana. And she is fine, if I say so myself. Yeah, this is actually a really good story. Great opening season opener to season 16, The Key to Time. Again, there's not much action or anything, but it's still actually really fun. This is probably the only Doctor Who story ever, the only piece of television ever, that can, or the only piece of science fiction actually, not television. This is probably the only piece of science fiction that can have that can really lack action and, fun, and still be entertaining. It's strange how it works. I'd recommend picking that one up. Actually, I recommend picking up the Key to Time overall because it's such a great series. So, yeah. Anyway, now you're moving on to the second story of The Key to Time. The Pirate Planet, starring Tom Baker. This is my favourite out of all the Key to Time stories. I mean, it's just so great. So I'm not sure if I did this for the Ribos Operation, but yeah, as you can see there, it's one disc long. Forgot to do that, sorry. But yeah, Ribos Operation is one disc, as you can see there, and so is the Pirate Planet. So yeah, that's again Pirate Planet's only disc right there. So yeah, so the Pirate Planet, and like I said before, is my favourite out of the Key to Time series, mostly because it's got a jelly baby scene in it, but it's not just that, it's other reasons as well. It's very entertaining. Not sure who plays the pirate captain, but he is actually really, really funny. He's even more crazy than Davros, to be honest. Yes, I said it. So, yeah, this is a really good story. This is a definite... No, I'm not going to say it's a definite pick-up, because I just recommend picking up the Key to Time the Key to Time box set, because it's the only way you can get this. The Key to Time box set, pick it up. Even if you don't like all the other stories, I'd still recommend picking it up just for this one. But I don't see why you wouldn't like most of the other stories anyway. Because there's one story from the Key to Time that sucks, and it's not coming up next, but we will get to it in a bit. Next up we have the 100th broadcasted Doctor Who story, The Stones of Blood. Now, starring Tom Baker. But yeah, now, The Stones of Blood is... Here's what I have to say. Episodes 1, 2 and 3 are absolutely magnificent. But episode 4 completely ruins it. I mean, of course this was written by David Fisher, who... I believe this was his first story that he wrote. If not, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But it was written by David Fisher, who actually wrote one of the biggest disasters, in my opinion, in Doctor Who history. The infamous Season 18 opener, which we'll get to later. But, yeah. It's one disc, again. Most of the stories in the Key to Time are one disc. So, yeah. So, episodes 1, 2 and 3 are good, but episode 4... Just, if it wasn't for episode 4, this would be a great, great story. So, yeah. So we're halfway through to the Key to Time now. We're halfway through season 16. Next up, we have one of the, probably the second best out of the entire box set, The Androids of Tara. This is starring Tom Baker. This is a great story, The Androids of Tara. Really, really good. Very, very entertaining. If I say so myself. One disc, starts the second half of the Key to Time series. Really good start to the second half of the Key to Time series again. Probably the weaker half of the Key to Time, but season 16, but what can you do? Very good story though. Very, very good story. And now we move on to the weakest link of season 16 of the Key to Time series. So, yeah. The Power of Kroll. Why? Why did it have to be Robert Holmes, one of the greatest Doctor Who writers who wrote this story? I mean, let me just say, it has its moments. It's not terribly bad, but it still is pretty bad, if I say so myself. I mean, it has an interesting concept, potential, just doesn't use it. It's just boring throughout the majority of it. So, yeah, but still, not the most boring Doctor Who episode ever. I mean, it's one disc long, as you can see there, but it's not great at all. Just not fantastic. Not good. really disappointed by that one. But I was warned by my best mates, so yeah. Next up we contain the finale and the only two-discer to the Key to Time, season 16, whatever. The Armageddon Factor starring Tom Baker, which makes Lalla Ward's debut role in Doctor Who as Princess... Sorry, I'm looking at the back now. Sorry. I just had to look. Astra, Princess Astra, that's her name. I forgot the princess's name, but who Lalla Ward plays, but it's Princess Astra. So, yeah. This is a 2-disc set. Again, it's got the same layout as the Invasion and Genesis of the Daleks, and that came off there, I don't know why. Oh, it's only a little bit. It's got disc 1 is the Key to Time Story 6, and disc 2 is the Key to Time Special Features. So, yeah. So, I haven't really checked out the special features on this yet, but I'll probably do that at some point. Maybe this weekend, I don't know. When I can be bothered. But yeah, the Armageddon Factor, it's a good end to season 16, I like it. But it would have been better as a 4-parter rather than a 6-parter. It does get boring at times, I must admit, especially in episodes 5 and 6, yeah. Right, now we completely skip season 17 and come to the final season of Tom Baker's reign as Doctor Who, season 18, and the start of the John Nathan Turner era. And we start with the weakling of season 18, and out of what I own, the worst Tom Baker story ever. David Fisher, you wrote great stories like the Stones of... Well, not great, but you wrote good stories like the Stones of Blood. You wrote great stories like The Androids of Tara and The City of Death. But you completely ruined your reputation with this story. Have you guessed what it is yet? Even if you haven't, it's too late. The Leisure Hive starring Tom Baker. Facepalm. This is so boring and badly directed. Awful camera work, I must admit. I mean, it's terrible. It's not like extremely terrible, but it's still terrible. One disc again, because it was one of the earlier Doctor Who DVD releases. But yeah, the Leisure Hive, majorly disappointed with that one. I didn't like it that much. The less said about it, the better. Let's just move on, please. Anyway, now we are actually going to be moving on. Flip, I'll sort that on a bit. Sorry about that, guys, anyway. Hope you guys didn't hear that. Anyway, now we are moving on to probably the most underrated story from season 18, which is Meglos, starring Tom Baker. Now, this episode, or this story, sorry, is actually considered to be really bad, but I actually think it's good. Yeah. I mean, it's got really long reprisals like the Leisure Hive, but I actually think it is entertaining at times. It does have its moments. Definitely better than the Leisure Hive. Definitely by miles. I mean, yeah, I get, like, the concept of the villain himself, Meglos, is stupid, but... I've seen much worse Doctor Who stories than this. One disc. So, yeah. So, if you're a Doctor Who fan, I still recommend picking this up. It's a really good, really underrated Tom Baker story. So, yeah. Anyway, now we are going to be moving on to the E-Space trilogy. And, hang on, how many stories? Yeah, sorry. Right, now we're going to be moving on to the start of the E-Space trilogy, and Adric's debut as... Sorry, Matthew Waterhouse's debut as Adric in Doctor Who. Full Circle, starring Tom Baker. Now, this is a great start to the E-Space trilogy. It's really good. Really, really good. One disc, which you can see right there. But yeah, it's a good story, that one. I actually really like it. It's a great start to the E-Space trilogy. So yeah. Right. Next up we have State of Decay, starring Tom Baker. Now, a lot of people consider this one to be really bad. I don't. I actually consider this to be an okay story. It's fine up to a certain extent. I mean, obviously, episodes, it does start out slow, like episodes 1 and 2 are pretty boring a lot of the time, but episodes 3 and 4 is where it redeems itself, and where it actually really, where the shit hits the fans. So, yeah. One disc again, as you can see there. So, yes. Definitely moving on to the next one. Oh, when we're past the halfway point of season 18, and way past the halfway point of the Tom Baker era, now we're going to move on to the third and final story of the E-Space trilogy, Warrior's Gate, starring Tom Baker. Now, I want to say this, no, either this or State of Decay is the weakling of the E-Space trilogy. I mean, this is good, actually. Yeah, State of Decay is. But anyway, this Warrior's Gate is good, but complicated, I must say. Very complicated. If you watched it, you'll know what I mean. Good. Although I do feel the departure for Romana could have been better. I just feel it was too rushed. So, yeah. One disc. Nice little end to the E-Space trilogy, and Lalla Ward's reign as Romana. So, yeah. And now you're moving on to Tom Baker's second to last, or penultimate story, if you like. And, hang on, let me just sort something out. Right. There we go. The Keeper of Traken, starring Tom Baker. This was my very first exposure to classic Doctor Who. This was the first classic Doctor Who story I ever properly watched. The first one I owned, along with the next two coming up. So, yeah, this is a really good story. Johnny Byrne has written underrated gems such as this, and The Keeper of Traken, and Warriors of the Deep. Sorry, this and Arc of Infinity, and Warriors of the Deep. So, yeah. It's one disc long there, as you can see. For some reason I snapped the thing there, that was the disc. And I lost the booklet, terrific, so... Yeah. But that was my first exposure to Classic Who, and a very excellent story. And now we are going to be moving on to Tom Baker's final story of his reign as the Doctor. Of course, it is the one, the only, Logopolis, starring Tom Baker. This story is really good. I mean, it's just such a great end to Tom Baker's reign as a Doctor, and also the introduction to Anthony Ainley as the Master. So yeah, I forgot to mention that in Terror of the Autons, that was Roger Delgado's introduction as the Master, and the Keeper of Traken was Geoffrey Beaver's only appearance as the Master. So yeah, it's one disc long. Again, very nice. So yeah, it's a very good story. If you're a Doctor Who fan, obviously get the New Beginnings box set. Especially if you're a fan of Tom Baker, because, well, his departure is pretty sad, if I say so myself. But yeah. So that is the end of the Tom Baker era, people, and the end of this part. I dedicated a whole video, or a whole part of this series of videos, to the Tom Baker era of Doctor Who. So, yes. That's how sad I am. So, anyway, that's going to be it for now, people. This is Mr. Doctor Who Fan 13 saying word out. Join me next time when we will cover the Peter Davison era.